morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the beautiful circuit of Imola. My co-commentator looking a bit green behind the gills, probably green with envy for our drivers who are going to be racing out here. Cameron Bastos will be joining us out on camera very, very shortly.
Yeah, good evening, Stephen. I think it might not be green with envy, but more green because maybe I had a pineapple on pizza, which is not normally welcome here in the Italian region. But tonight we are not in Italy. We're in a small neighboring country of San Marino, in a district called Emilia Romagna, on a very small racetrack called Imola. Now, Imola, also known as Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari, is one of the most historic and challenging circuits in the world. Opened in the 1950s, the Italian track is famous for its flowing layouts, elevation changes, and iconic corners like Tamburello and Acqua Minerale. But also, Imola is steeped in motorsport history, including the tragic San Marino Grand Prix of 1994, where Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger both lost their lives, a moment that not changed only F1, but also motorsport across the world. Now, the track has also hosted endurance racing, Stephen, including the LMP1 prototypes, the class before our hypercars that we're going to see tonight, and where the cutting-edge hybrid system machines from Audi, Porsche, and Toyota were absolutely pushed to the limit of technology and speed. Now, unfortunately, the LMP1 era ended in 2020, with Toyota clinching the final championship at Bahrain, but Imola still remained a symbol of both motorsport innovation and remembrance. And tonight, I'm eager to see how the drivers are going to tackle this track, specifically with this cars. It's a new track for our championship, as well as many of our drivers. They might have raced it on ACC, but this new one is a bit different, with runoffs being replaced by gravel compared to the normal asphalt that was there.
Yeah, as per the FIA regulations and the hypercars that we're going to be keeping an eye on, Crystals currently leads out the top of the championship ahead of the Ferraris. Only one Toyota joining us here tonight, and that's going to be the likes of Jan Fiers, who will be looking forward to some great racing. Our GT3s are action-packed as it's our biggest field, and they're going to be starting with qualifying shortly. So let's go down to the circuit. Take a look as they start to get their laps in. Now, Cameron, we do have a couple of the points for the championship because we're going to talk about it right now. Crystals leads out with winning every single round on 103 points currently. He's got the likes of Johan Kleinans, his teammate, in second place. Johan Verveers lies in third place with 44 points. Brandon Kruger, after a second place in round 4, is chasing that third place. He's on 43 points, 1 point behind the likes of Johan Verveers. Jaco Kutzer down in fifth place with 32 points. And Bernard Barkhuizen, who we haven't seen since round 2, is yet to make his appearance back out on track. Our GT3s, that's where the action has been heating up whole season long. Kyle Oosthuizen leads out the pack. Only 1 second place he received in round 2. He leads with 94 points. Dion Kopp, after getting a penalty and starting from the back of the field, is currently sitting in second place with 42 points. And that's 2 points ahead of Jan Blicknote, who unfortunately had a failure on his side that took him out of the running. Esteban Pretorius, a driver that we didn't quite expect in the early stages of the championship, now sitting in fourth place, 37 points. Bego Krobler with 31 points. Jason Farmer with 25. Jody Sideman sits on 22 points. Michael van Rooyen sits with 21 points. And ninth place, Andre Macheka, who sits with 18 points, with Ulrich Kleinans chasing him down on 15 points, who's actually tied with Dan Brown on 15 points. Dennis Gillett, who will not be making it here tonight, is on 14 points behind at 12th position. So it is incredibly close, Cam, and I think we're in for an absolute treat to see who will be able to put themselves at the top of the board. At the moment, top of the board for our GT3s in practice is Bego Krobler, and he will be hoping to carry that moment through. Chris Stolz, looking to try and get the top end for the hypercar class, will be on a monumentous charge for the Peugeot. Now, if we go back in time, Imola hasn't been a great time for Peugeot, and it's even back to the 908 that the cars just didn't like the circuit. They battled with the track for years and years and years, and it became a fight between themselves, Audi and Toyota, in the later parts of the LMP1 era. when it came to the hypercars, in real life, this was the Achilles heel that showed the new bodywork that was running in 2024 was not capable of putting down sufficient downforce on the car and to help mechanical grip to get to the front end of the field. That was actually won by the 499P Ferrari that launched its way to the top.
It's quite. It does make sense with the way that the new chassis, the 9X8, was built. Not the one that Chris Stolz is driving. It didn't really have a rear wing. It made use of Venturi tunnels, so that front end just sucking into that air, hoping to create enough downforce and just keep it stuck to that, to this racing surface. But with Imola, there's a lot of different elevation. The start is pretty much flat. Through Tamburello, it's a chicane, but it's still a flat, equal surface. And then after the hairpin there, it immediately, after the Villeneuve chicane, it immediately goes up and then drops again down into Acqua Minerale, meaning that the car gets sucked down, the driver feels, but then immediately climbs up. And there's a bit of a steady, slow descent into your two final corners. So the car really didn't perform as much compared to, the one that we see now on circuit. I don't believe Peugeot really have shown that even this works currently at the circuit. Steven does can correct me on that point, but I don't know. Peugeot, I don't think they really mastered the concept behind the car that they were developing, going with innovative technology or design, which is pretty much a iconic element of the top performing class of WEC, which is our hypercars and previously the LMP1 cars. That's where the technology that we have in our cars get tested and just really pushing the limits of motorsport engineering. But I don't think Peugeot really sorted that out yet and focused the design too much on winning Le Mans and not really on the rest of the season. So they went back to the drawing board, added a wing, but I do think they need to go back and fix some other stuff where the other manufacturers pretty much mastered it. But as we take a look here at this Porsche of Chris Heineke as he shoots through the relatively new chicane Tamburello that was there to slow drivers down from the start line, not carry too much speed there as he heads into a very bumpy second chicane and then into that sharp hairpin. I used to know all the names of the track. And at this point in time, I don't know anymore because everything is Italian and I haven't brushed up my Italian yet, even though I probably should.
Well, Chris Heineke is actually going to be flying solo for the Griffin Sim Racing team tonight as Ruud Heineke going and letting us know out there in the virtual grandstands. Joining us with Antonio Gamble. A massive welcome to you all. Welcome to Imola and welcome to the RaceFace.Pro Le Mans Ultimate Championship. And it is round 5 as we get closer and closer to the end of the championship. It's going to be a wild one. It's going to be a great one. It's going to be an exciting one. A couple of drivers need to put a time on the board. We do have Jaco Kutzer really pushing the Ferrari to fight his way to the top, but it's Brandon Kruger putting himself with a 130.2 ahead of Jan Verveers, the mighty Toyota, still pushing that second place at 130.9. He gets beaten up by Jan Kleinans in the Ferrari 499P, trying to get that little bit more of an edge on him. LaRue goes and puts himself ahead of the GT3s with a 145.365. He's got the likes of Andre Macheka, who had a massive accident in practice, smashing out the BMW. They did a little bit of work on the car, and seems like it's all come to fruition. Kyle Oosthuizen puts himself in first place with a 145.2. Jeff LaRue with a 145.3, and Macheka drops down even further as Bego Kroblo, who was fastest in practice, puts himself with a 145.4. But take a look at that, Cam. 0.077 for our GT3s and 0.021 for our hypercars, as Chris Stolz is not able to go and kick Brandon Kruger off that top spot.
Quite a shocking something to see. We're so used to the likes of Chris Stolz in that Peugeot dominating the hyperclass car, and here we have Brandon Kruger from Omnius Gaming going and taking that fight to the Delta Negative squad. However, it's only by 2/100th of a second. We do know that Chris Stolz, as we already see there, that first sector, the fastest overall sector, just knows how to extract, and I think he's just trying to get the tires into that perfect operating window and maximize his grip around this entire Imola circuit. As we see him bottoming out there, the sparks flying as the car compresses into the circuit there at the bottom of Acqua Minerale and shoots right back up into Variante Alta. I believe I need to pull up a track map. There we go, got it.
In through the two and charges down the hill. We're going to be a double left-hander to compete with. So up in sector 1, up in sector 2, hard on the brakes, nose dives forward through sector 3, coming out the corner. It's flat out through here. I think it's a good time to put him on the board. Crystal's maybe the quickest that we've seen, and possibly a 129 coming out of it. Let's take a look as he comes across the line and does a 129.9, only just getting ahead of Brandon Kruger by 0.3 of a second, but starting to show the difference between himself and the Ferraris that chase him down. I've got to say, Jan Verveers heading out onto the circuit, really trying to put a time on the board, and is quite competitive. He's in 4th place. He's ahead of Jaco Kutzer, who does come across the line and puts a time on the board. He bounces himself up into 2nd, knocking out Kruger.
That was something that we did not expect to really happen. I mean, Kutzer was one of those trailing pack cars just normally circulating and picking up points from the incidents involving the other hypercars, but he has really proven that he knows his way around the circuit and it can take the fight and be the fastest of the Ferrari cars. But I mean, Stephen, can we be shocked here? Ferrari, we are in Italy. I will have to say, I recant my sentence that I said earlier. We're not in San Marino, we are in Italy. Got a bit of a note there from my brother-in-law saying, listen, it's not San Marino, it is Italy, get your racetracks right, and got scolded and a rap on the wrist from that. Sorry. But we are in Italy, and the Ferraris are on home turf. You can pretty much say they are in home turf. So they should be able to perform. They've got phenomenal racetracks. So the car has been built probably to accommodate these things. But still, the 3/10 gap between the Ferraris as well as that of Crystals is just something to really awe at, because it is absolutely amazing. 3/10, yes, it doesn't look like much to us, but we do know every 10th counts when it comes to motorsports. A 3/10 gap can feel like 300 meters. It is absolutely shocking to see the difference between the times, and Crystals going even faster with a 29.8 from a 29.90 to a 29.86. That Peugeot is absolutely flying.
And taking a look over to the cars as well, Jaco Kutzer very, very close to Stills, but take a look, Roblo retaking 1st place. Majeka heads into 2nd place, and he's been putting in some good time there. 144.3 was his last lap time. Carl Oosthuizen, the championship leader, currently sits in 3rd and hoping to really put the hammer down to fight his way through. He's got Dion Cup trying to chase him down, doing a 144.445 versus the likes of Carl's 144.405. So it's so close between our GT3s. Even Esteban Pretorius, who took a debut win, is now smiling ear to ear. He's in the top 5 and looking to really put the power down to see if he can get a bit closer. Jeffrey LaRue down in 6th place along with Johan Blicknight. In 7th, 8th is Michael van Rooyen. Vietia Buerta in 9th, and Chris Haneke holding that top 10. He's getting chased down by Jody Sedderman, along with Rio Monton, JD Gildenays, Dan Brown, Vessel Woda, Conrad Martin, Grant Leclerc, Mike McGear, Gerald van der Venter, Harry Duplessis, Arno Kraus, Gideon Bernardi going and rounding out our pack. A couple of drivers not making it here tonight, Cam, and it's a big one. It's Bernard Barkhuizen that is not here to go and put a time on the board. He's not here at Imola, unfortunately. Dennis Gillett is out due to work, and Nathan Watt, Jason Farmer, and Hilton Nixon not able to make it here to Imola. So sacrificing a few points in the championship, and we'll have to take a look on the sideline of what can they do heading into round 6 of whether they can pick up the pace.
Absolutely, we do make use of a drop round system here in this championship. So I'm quite shocked with Bernard Barkhuizen not being able to make it. He did miss the one, and we thought that would be his drop round, as he has shown incredible pace. And with the likes of Dennis Gillett, he can substitute this did not start round as his drop round, meaning that his lowest starting result previously will now be counting. But we are past the halfway point now, meaning that we're in our final second half of the season. So 4 races remaining in order to decide our Season 2 champion. And I will say, Stephen, for our GT3 class, there hasn't been a clear-cut winner as of yet. It's a close fight between the likes of Blichnout as well as Oosthuizen. But Dion Kapp, can't write him off there yet. He is sniffing there in the background. He is sniffing the exhaust fumes of the cars in front of him, hoping that they make mistakes and go and get some points there.
Well, that's it, as Jan Blichnout, who's currently third in the championship, puts himself into first. Jan Kapp trying to retaliate down in Sector 1. Will have to try and pick up the pace down in Sector 2. So this is going to be just a warm-up before he can give it one big push. Bego Krobler down into second. Carl Oosthuizen, our championship leader, up in Sector 1. Up on his personal best in Sector 2. Is Sector 3 going to count for him? Comes across the line, does move himself up into second, and narrowly getting close to Blichnout's 143.8 as he sets a 144.023. So still right there to try and make it happen. However, didn't turn out to be the case. And Dion Kapp, who will be fighting out in the Ferrari 296, looks to put the hammer down and does do the fastest Sector 3 time. How's that? Down in Sector 1, down in Sector 2, but found something in Sector 3 that everyone's going to be keeping an eye out on. Pacheco heading back out onto the circuit, really trying to put a time on the board. This is going to be his final run to get it on the board. This has to be, give it everything you got. Warm up those tires, put everything you got in your pocket and go to ensure you're in for the fight. Jeff Leroux out there in the Mercedes, good personal time as he's up a little bit in 8th place. He's hoping to get a little bit closer to that top 5. Michael van Rooyen, same in the Aston Martin, trying to really put the hammer down and see where he can go. Chris Heineke, who's the only Griffin Sim Racing team member here at Imola. The rest are watching from back at home, are going to be cheering him on at this point and saying, come on, Chris, you can do it. Put the hammer down. Make sure you make it work. Visserwoda putting in the fight as well in 12th position in the Mercedes and been bouncing between 2 different sims, ACC and LMU. A lot of these drivers have been doing that, bouncing between the 2 different sims in the GT3s, actually different cars entirely to see how they work out. However, there can only be one winner and one champion. At the moment, there's one pole position for each class, and that's held by Blichnout and Chris Stills out at the top. The Peugeot and the BMW still showing a proper dominating affair as Carl Oosthuizen relaxes in pit lane. I don't think he's going to be going out again. Bego Krobler has got the advantage to try and take that second place. Same as Pacheco, same as Dion Kapp, and same for the rest of our GT3 field.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm quite shocked though. You did mention though that many of the drivers are jumping between 2 different sims, but not just 2. Well, sometimes even 3. Some doing the racing, ACC, and then LMU. And the thing is, they're doing something that I'm not able to do and able to master the different braking techniques being used in all of these sims. So hats off to you guys for being able to do that. I much rather stick to my 1 sim pony. But still, Matejka getting some support there from Massim and Machasko, saying Machasko is going to be P1 today 100% and that he is the GOAT. I mean, he is sporting quite a nice livery there for the WR6, WRT, the 46 team there of the Valentino Rossi livery, but still needs to really go and put in some time, struggling to get proper times in. Sets the fastest last sector of all the GT3 class and still doesn't really improve. Gets bit closer, but not by much. It seems to be a BMW 1-2 and then a break in car manufacturers, but still a German car manufacturer in the form of a Mercedes, and Matejka sitting in 4th. But the BMW, we mentioned it in Season 1, this car is quite strong when it comes to straight line performance, and with a long run from the last corner all the way to the first Tamburello chicane, it is pretty much flat out, and this car will perform. Even with a bit of an uphill run, it as we see him now, it is still a bit of a straight. He will be able to pull out. And as I say that, first sector, fastest of all GT3s. Can he keep it as he dives into Akumrali? It's a hard left as he mounts the curb. Do not tap the brake, flat out all the way down into the quick the double right-hander, then on the brakes hard, down the gears, turn it in, hope it bites, runs all the way to the edge, not able to make it, unfortunately. As my co-commentator shakes his head, saying he might have been able to just go past the dotted line there, and there we can see confirmation. Not the time that he wanted, a 1 minute, 1 second, 1.4 second sector there. This will be his final lap, not being able to improve. He will have to settle for 4th.
Yeah, unless Sector 3 is an absolute flyer to get into the 143s, it's going to have to be quite content with 4th place. But second row on the board is not bad at all. As they put down the hammer and get going, he dives into the pits, calling it quits. So, as our drivers make their way through, we got Blicknote, who is at the top of the pile for our GT3s. And still sets fastest lap time in Sector 1. Sector 2 is down, not by much though, and Sector 3 is going to be the game plan. Is he going to further put salt in the wounds for a couple of drivers as he puts the hammer down? Michael van Rooyen still out on circuit, along with Wessel Woda, who actually went down in Sector 2, but up in Sector 1. Sector 3 is going to be the big one for the Mercedes here. Can he make it work to bounce up into the top 10? Does come across the line. He does get the fastest through the final sector and up into 11th position. A great run on his part to really fight his way through. Thierry Duplessis also trying to get his times out on the board. Unfortunately, won't have enough to be further up. Blicknote does come across the line with a 143.6, so he did go 0.2 quicker on his final lap. Michael van Rooyen up in Sector 2 chooses not to continue his lap. He goes straight into pit lane, thinking, well, it wasn't good enough for that final sector. Let's rather go and get ourselves in the box. So, plenty of action here to talk about. Plenty of racing to talk about, Cam, as Imola is not a circuit that you want to take lightly. It's a circuit that will really test you to push the limits. For those that are in single-seaters, you have to get brave, you have to get excited, you have to go towards the curbs, which you've been taught stay right away from. Much like the hypercars, you don't want to be close to them, you will land up in a bit of a problem, but in the GT3 you can go on the attack. That being said, let's take a look at our grid as we start lining up. It's going to be Crystals out in first place with Jaco Kutzer in second place. Johan Kleinans, Brandon Kruger hold the second row with John Verveers, and Bernard Bauerkaisen, who's not in the field today, would have been in sixth place. For our GT3s, it's Johan Blicknote along with Carl Oosthuizen, Bego Grobler, Andre Mateka, along with Dion Karp, Estienne Pretorius, Jeff LaRue, Viatia Buerta in 8th. 9th place is Michael van Rooyen. Rounding out our top 10 is Chris Heineke. Wessel Woda, Dan Brown, along with Jody Sederman, JD Gildenes, Kriel Mouton, Conrad Martin, Grant Leclerc, Thierry Duplessis, Mike McGear in 25th, Gerald van der Vente, Arno Kraus in 27th. 28th is Gideon Bernardi, who is not at the track. He is actually at the track. He will be racing. Nathan Watt, Dennis Gillett, Hilton Nixon, Jason Farmer, who will be non-starters here at Imola and will be missing out on crucial points. But that being said, we're getting ready for a rather exciting race, Cam. And I've got to say, this is a circuit that you either love it to pieces or you hate it dearly. And for those that have been on the fence, this can be the very crucial time, whether it's either going to work in your favor or Imola is going to show you how close you can get to those walls.
And absolutely, Imola, it's a special piece of history in our motorsports, in the history of motorsport. And even though we do it virtually, for many of us, it's still something that we appreciate if you know the impact that this track has. But you mentioned it, the drivers, many of the drivers in single seaters have been told stay away from these curbs. From what I see here, they do not have those massive sausage curbs. But we are all bunching up now and getting ready to go green, and we're going to hand that over to, I believe, not Tim the cameraman. Who's our flag waver, Stephen?
We got Jim, who's on the flags, and it's Crystals and Jaco Kutzer that are going to take the green. Lights on, and we get ready to wait. Slowing the pace down, getting yourself ready, Straighten out those shoulders, wiggle those fingers, and eyes on as you go racing. It's a great start for Crystals, a not so great start for Jaco Kutzer. Johan Kleinans immediately goes on the attack with Brandon Kruger 3 wide, heading into turn 1. This is going to be who's late on the brakes, and it does look like Crystals gets ahead. Johan Kleinans along with Jaco Kutzer make their way on by. For our GD3s, it's Johan Blicknote ahead of Carl Oosthuizen. Macheka down into third, Bego Krobler, Dian Karp chasing down in fifth. A little bit further back, Esteban Pistorius trying to make goes, and we do have a spinner in the background. We have a car gone completely wrong in the background. That might have been the likes of, there we go, it's Kerry Duplessis that got turned round, and unfortunately now is at the back of the field trying to fight his way through. So not a good start for him, and we've got a problem. Jaco Kutzer off into the dirt. Jaco Kutzer into the dirt for the Hypercars, now trying to get himself back out and going. He will see the GD3 field carving his way through, but that is not quite what he wanted, as Crystals and Johan Kleinans look to fight with one another. Brandon Kruger dealing with the likes of the Fears, closing down on him. So, couple of thrills, spills, and drama at the first start of the race, Cam. And I think we're in for so much more here. In the immortal words of Murray Walker, drama, 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 as we get ready to see the fight, even for our GT3s.
Absolutely, Stephen, and it will not be an Italian race without drama, as we see Blicknote defending from Carl Oosthuizen, and these two have been going at one another for the past 2 or 3 rounds, and unfortunately with some technical issues for Blicknote at Qatar, have him finish as a DNF, losing some points there. But Italian circuit will always bring some drama, because you will not be in Italy without screaming "Mamma Mia" at 1 or 2 times during the race with the amount of drama that we see here. But Kutzer really has to fight his way through this pack, which is going to be difficult, and I do suspect, unfortunately, got on the throttle too early. Tires are cold, wheel spin on that uphill hairpin section, and it was just goodbye. Hopefully he did not hit the wall. I'm looking at that front end of the Ferrari. It seems to be intact, no damage, no paint has been shed with the wall as he flies past our GT3s, heading into the second chicane before going into that fateful hairpin where he lost control on the previous lap.
Getting past Chris Heineke, getting past Vessel Woda, goes around the outside, sweeps across, will get on the power early to get ahead of Vietia Buerta. But you can see having to take a little bit more of a gentle approach. You're not wanting to go and fight and destroy people's races. He does have to back off after getting past Michael van Rooyen, and that has just given Jeffrey Leroux a little bit more time to breathe away from Michael van Rooyen and to carry on his fights a little bit further on. This is always a tricky part as a hypercar. You got lots of power to play with, but into the corners, you are relatively the same speed. You don't have too much of a difference there. Only on corner exit do you have that little bit more drive. The hypercars have to wait a little bit more, brake a little bit early. You do have the advantage of high aero, but I suspect many of these cars that are in the hypercar class, as Jaco Kutzer puts a beautiful pass on Bego Krobler, a good slide to make it work as he tries to slice his way through. You need to be feathering it the whole way through. You need to keep yourself in order, and it does take roughly 2 laps to get these tyres in. As you take a look at Bego Krobler and Dian Cup, they're fighting with one another, trying to close up to Macheka, Oosthuizen, and Blicknote ahead. Our hypercars, however, have been split by quite a margin at the moment. Brandon Kruger has set the fastest lap time of the race thus far, but is miles off the mark of our leader.
And it seems to have just pulled away there. But we did mention, Stephen, the hypercar seems to be very patient in order to make moves on our GT3 there. Imola is a very, very narrow track, and if you are not cautious, as we do have a yellow flag, if you're not cautious and you send a move on a GT3, both of you will unfortunately be paying the price, the GT3 being the innocent party as the hypercar needs to pass them. But just take a look at this. Johan Kleinans losing time as him and his teammate Chris Stolz were running in formation on the previous lap, and now being hunted down by the likes of Brandon Kruger. Now, last week we saw Brandon Kruger nursing the car across the line after sustaining some mechanical damage, either on the gearbox or on the engine itself. As we saw,
the motor. That was the problem. Close the ducts up for colder conditions with a setup that he bought. And unfortunately, we're on a warmer time, and it went and landed up destroying the motor, but killing a lot of the power. But, that being said, you're touching on. Brandon Kruger made up a lot of time. He's cutting left, he's cutting right. He can't find a way past the likes of Jan Kleinans at the moment, as he just hunts for a way past. Behind them, hanging on the coattails at the moment, is the likes of Jan Verveers from the Trail Bullets team. They're trying to keep an eye on what can they do in the hypercar class. However, I think we have seen these two gotten close before, going back to round 1, round 2, round 3. Both drivers landed up in a bit of an argy-bargy situation. Both drivers are wanting to avoid that, but history does repeat itself every so often. So let's hope it isn't today, with Imola being the catalyst.
And absolutely, and Lightning does seem to, well, does sometimes like to strike the same place twice, maybe just not always in succession. But these two really trying their best. Jan Kleinans last week hunting down Kruger, and unfortunately going and exceeding some track limits, incurring a penalty, meaning, oh, and there's a Mercedes in the pits without a rear wing. I think that was a bit of a collection point, no rear wing, needing to have to pit.
Mike McGear into the pits and sustained a serious amount of damage. He had it in practice as well when he lost control of the rear going through Aqua Morali, going and just having the rear kick out underneath him, bit the wall, and that was all she wrote for the Mercedes. They got it repaired, but hopefully they can get the car back out again. Michael van Rooyen around the outside of Jeffrey Leroux couldn't quite make that pass stick.
No, you do not want to go side by side really through Variante Alta. It's quite a tricky one. You have to mount those curbs in order to maximize your line and carry as much speed through it, but it also unsettles the car. So to go side by side, hats off to you two gents. It's quite scary. As you take a look at the forecast, it's Mercedes on Aston, a Mercedes on an Aston, and then a lonesome trailing Mercedes there behind, who's not finding a Aston Martin, but maybe a Porsche a bit far back. But there's two pairs of battles going on here on our screens, and both of them involve a Mercedes and an Aston Martin that's trying to scramble their way and fight for position as they cross the start-finish line, heading into Tabarero now. Stephen, something that we didn't touch much on is the focus on racing someone on this track. You are always looking in your mirror, where is the guy, where's your opponent, is he going to make a move on you? And sometimes if they're close enough and throw in the element of a hypercar, it does sometimes distract you and you miss your braking point for Tamburello, and we've seen it many times, and they go into the kiddie litter and go farming and getting stuck there, needing to wait or work their way slowly through that kiddie litter and rejoin the track, dragging rubble and dust onto it, which makes the racing line a bit dirty. We and you both know, we've experienced it. You in a single-seater, myself in a GT4 and a hypercar, it's not something fun.
Well, it's definitely not the easiest. Crystals and Johan Kleinans starting to carve their way through the GT3 field, and Brandon Kruger will be following suit. You can see that Kleinans on the exit wasn't too happy. The car snapping underneath him as he tried to get early on the power. He's got to be careful not to be boxed in here. But for the rest of the field, they're going to be keeping an eye on the rearview mirrors, on the relatives, and listening to the radio calls, whether they have got a problem or not. However, it's going to be a long race, especially when you start catching up to this fighting duo of Esteban Pretorius, Jeffrey Leroux, and Michael van Rooyen is the trio that are pushing as hard as they can. You can see Mike van Rooyen dropping a wheel on the dirt a little bit as he keeps the power on, trying to keep on the back of Leroux and Pretorius, who sits in that 6th place. The likes of Jan Blickno, Carl Oosthuizen, and Andre lie 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Vego Korbler has got no one to play with. He lies in 4th with Dion Karp in 5th place, trying to close up the gap. But there is still many fights adrift, like Conrad Martin and Grant Leclerc. It is the McLaren against the Aston, and it's late on the brakes for the Aston Martin. Grant Leclerc trying everything he can to close that gap to Conrad Martin, trying to see whether he can take the fight to Conrad. It's going to be a tough time a little bit back. You can see our leader of the Hypercar, Crystals, make his way through. He's going to have to get past these fighting duo safely and quickly to make sure he doesn't run into any problems. And that's going to be the exact same sentiment as Johan Kleinans and Brandon Kruger as they fight, looking for the up and under. Not able to do it. Kruger will also be looking for his opportunity to get the pass before the GD3s or to box in the likes of Johan Kleinans.
Absolutely, and this we saw last week. Brandon Kruger can really use the likes of this traffic for his advantage. Pull a brilliant box move on Kleinans the previous round, where he used that GT3 traffic, blocked Kleinans on the corner exit, and just able to shoot through. And Kleinans had no way to really fight back, as he had to back down, wait for the GT3 to get up to speed, wait for the gap to open, and then go there. But these two have been sticking to one another from since Kleinans made that mistake. And Brandon Kruger, with that slipstream, will be having a lot more top end compared to the likes of Kleinans, meaning that he will Kleinans, in order to defend, will have to either deploy the battery and expense it, but I don't think they will do that. We do know Delta Negative are quite smart with the strategy and how they deploy that battery. I see them both running wide. More of a hot lapping line, I would say. Normally you would try and stick close to it. I'm not really sure. Or start of a fast flying lap there, but the drivers really showcasing, Brandon Kruger showcasing being able to follow in the slipstream quite closely and not letting go of Kleinans at all when he goes through that first part of sector and working his way through the GT3 traffic.
Only thing he's got the problem with is not having the visibility of the traffic ahead when he's so close in the fight, and likes of Johan Kleinans can dictate where he's gonna go just by picking his line beforehand, seeing where the traffic is moving around, as he does end up trying to get the pass done on our 8th place, and that's Dan Brown, who was catching up and trying to make a bit of way forward. Late brakes for our 7th place, and that's Michael van Rooyen, who gets a face full of Ferrari and puts a wheel wrong. Does have the likes of Jan Verveers, who gets on by, but only just. Pretorius late on the brakes, trying to carry his momentum, as it does look like Kleinans now opening up that distance and starting to make his way through. We talked about how the hypercars can influence the race. Well, Dan Brown and Michael van Rooyen are a lot closer this time round, looking to really fight their way through. Vego Krobler dealing with Crystals, thankfully on corner exit, so he's able to put his foot straight to the floor and try close up the gap to Macheka, who's up ahead of him. So let's keep an eye on those battles as they start to build on. We still keep an eye out for 2nd and 3rd in our hypercar class, a very, very beautiful class that needs a little bit more love. Oh, not what you want to have. Macheka gets a face full of Ferrari, and that is Brandon Kruger losing the rear of the car. Traffic got in the way, slammed on the anchors, turned the car around, and that cost him 2nd and 3rd place, and he's immediately trying to get back onto the gas and carve his way through the field yet again, as drivers now saying, okay buddy, that was a little bit hair raising on all our parts here, but to no fault of Macheka there. Unfortunately, too quick of the car, catching up in a very slow corner, and you gotta give a little bit of room when you're in the hypercar. Unfortunately, that did not seem to be the case, and unfortunately Brandon Kruger was the victim in the whole thing by going and lifting off, causing the car to jerk, and that was all she wrote.
Unfortunately, that is something we spoke about with Imola being such a small, tight circuit there, and Tamburello, where you go from a very high speed into hard braking, slowing down. And it's quite difficult. Tight circuits, tight corners, you're not really able to make a good... Well, you have to be careful, especially if you mentioned, Stephen, being close proximity of the car in front of you. They are allowed to dictate where they want to place the car. They're allowed to say, listen, I'm going to make the move here, and that it's up to you behind me in order to try and get past. GT3s do not have to change, just to jump out the way. They can continue their own race. Just, you can't even say they can't. You can't even say they shouldn't prohibit the car behind, because why? They are very, very fast cars. So the hypercars, they just pull out no matter what. You can try and defend in a GT3, you will be coming off very, very far worse. So unfortunately, just a bit of a well, what can we say? A bit of a Gideon Bernardi just losing out to JD Geldenhuys' car. Not happy as he came into Variante Alta, unsettling, losing the drive, running a bit wider. Gideon Geldenhuys saying, thank you very much. I will sneak round by, take this position from you, and try and drive out of your life. But it's going to be quite difficult as Gideon Bernardi is back onto pace in that slipstream of that Mercedes AMG Evo, and really trying to put the foot down and try to gain it back. But again, needs to be mindful where the brake corner, well, the brake point is for Tamburella, let's take a look at our third and fourth battle between Andrei Matejka and Bego Hrobler. BMW versus Mercedes, German versus German manufacturer. Who is going to be Bego Hrobler? A old experienced hand when it comes to GT3 racing, and also at Imola, he knows the circuit quite well. Andrei Matejka, newcomer to the series, but also proven to be quite a force to be reckoned with, will be able to hold it out against the old guard to see if he's able to really keep up the pace while hunting down still the likes of Blugnout and Oosthuizen.
Well, taking a look, Hilton Nixon, a late start for him. He's able to get in the race. Unfortunately, we do have one retirement in this race, and that was our little Mercedes that was really banged up of Jeff LaRue. He's unfortunately not able to finish and will not be seeing the end of the race. That's a bit of unfortunate running for him, and it takes him out of that little bit of an issue. So, that being said, got to talk about Andrei Matejka a little bit more. A driver that's actually done virtual pro racing out in Italy and been having a bit of fun out there. That is utilizing R Factor 2. He did really well and came 7th place on the last run, and has really, stepped up his mark all the way through. It's good to see him going and trying out different things. So really trying to see where he can find that little bit more pace underneath him and showing off a bit of international recognition as well. Always lovely to see the drivers coming in, being part of the show, being part of this amazing time here at RaceFace.Pro from around the world. But they got Bego Hrobler, as you said, chasing him down. Old guard knows what he's doing, really knows how to put the power on. But while these two have been fighting, I don't know if you noticed this, Cam, there's a certain little Ferrari that is prancing a little bit in the background there and is now closing up on this duo, looking to make it a trio.
Yeah, Dion Cup has been sneaking all a little bit closer. Absolutely, just doing what he does best, started from back and then trying to fight his way forward. But looks like the Ferrari has noticed it's on Italian soil and just loving the field that is grazing on and hoping and just enjoying the good, strong Italian air that's flowing through that front intake of that car and hoping closing down. But both Andrei Matejka and Bego Hrobler fighting it out is also helping the cause, as that will just slow them down more, bring Dion Cup closer. But you mentioned, Stephen, Andrei Matejka, very well established racer when it came to the R Factor 2 platform, and as many of us know, R Factor 2 is the basis of which LMU is built off of. It's a bit more on the evolved side, better graphics, better engine, better physics, but it is still got the same principles behind it, with some things changed here and there with that. So Andrei Matejka really going and taking his experience from R Factor 2 and hoping it translates well over to the likes of LMU. And so far it has, with unfortunate mishaps happening along the line. But take a look at our lead battle. Johan Blugnout, 0.5 seconds ahead of his closest competitor, Carl Oosthuizen. These two have pulled a massive gap, or 5 seconds is the gap between Matejka and Blugnout currently there, and these two have just been going at one another, circulating a bit, and I think it's still going to go down either towards the pit stop, or if there's going to be a mechanical failure, knocking on wood on my side, hoping that it does not go there. As we see Hilton Nixon in the pits, absolutely smashed rear wing, and the front end looks a bit crumpled there also a little bit. But take a look back. Bego Hrobler, Andrei Matejka, 0.4 is the gap between two of them. And right behind the Dion Cup, dropping back a little bit. A gap of 1 second being already formed since the last time we looked at that gap. But every time as across a microsector, that gap keeps on growing. The Ferrari not really able to get its legs up and running.
Well, that is to be said. Unfortunately, Hilton Nixon's damage does look to be far worse than planned, and will be definitely hurting on that one. He's come out and lost it, and nearly taking out one of our hypercars in the process. Mike McGear back out on track. He's trying to get the run, but we do see a pit stop, and this is for Viertia Buerta, unfortunately behind the sign, and I do suspect an unplanned pit stop. We're at the 40-minute mark, and he's already dived into the pits. Wasn't too quick on his last lap, however, 146.0 when he's been running in the 145s, 147, so 145, 144. So we're looking forward to seeing if we can get that car back out for the Aston Martin team. However, we do get confirmation. Hilton Nixon, a DNF, another one on the clock for Hilton Nixon. He just hasn't had a good season. It's been a rough year for him, that is for certain. Been entered in multiple categories and just hasn't had luck on his side this time around. and will be looking forward to just breaking the camel's back and moving forward with his racing in both iRacing and in LMU. As we take a look at two old hands here, Arno Kraus and Graham Maton fighting each other. Maton, a former champion here in RaceFace.Pro in the gold division. He's fighting out Arno Kraus, also a former champion in the gold division for the likes of ACC on a Thursday night. Arno Kraus and Maton keeping the pressure on one another. They do have Grant Leclerc a little bit ahead of them, trying to follow the gap. And now this is going to be an interesting time of whether you work with one another or do you go on the attack, as Chris Hills goes and forces a pass to happen on Maton, dives the inside, gets it done, gets the undercut on likes of Arno Kraus. But take a look at the drive difference as Arno Kraus has closed up at a rate of knots to the Aston Martin of Grant Leclerc.
The Lexus is one of those old cars that it might be aged old. I believe 2016 was the last time that this car might be updated. Still need to fact check that. But compared to the likes of, oh, good head shake, no, it's
2025. The chassis got renovated in 2025. Minor adjustments. It first made its debut in the early 2000s, but it has had minor changes. The only thing that Lexus hasn't done is they don't call it an Evo every time something comes out.
There's a bit of shade being thrown at, well, the Aston Martin Vantage GT3 Evo, the AMG Mercedes Evo, the Audi LMS Evo 2 and Evo, the Porsche. Oh wait, Porsche wasn't called Evo.
No, the Porsche was a 992.2 and a 992.1. But then you also have the likes of
McLaren.
So you got McLaren, you've got BMW, you've got Ferrari, you've got Lamborghini, you've got... I mean, we can go through the list, but...
The Evo list is long, and it's not really an evolution. It's literally just minor adjustments, like wings.
It's an evolution on basic principles, but that being said, it's still a Lexus. It's still a small block. It still gives you gears and still puts on a fight. However, we start to see more of the Toyota coming alive, and hopefully we're going to see the Toyota Supras coming in for the 2026 season. Begor Krobler and Andre Mateka, however, going to take the AMG Evo up against the BMW and trying to make a little bit more pace into that effect. So the BMW really putting the hammer down. However, Begor Krobler keeps right onto that rear wing, looking for a pass and just not getting that little bit of room to make it happen here. And I mean, this is going to be a hard fight.
Yeah, it's going to be quite hard, and we did mention the BMW Evo. This, however, is not the Evo spec of the BMW M4. It's still the old one. I do believe the Evo will be coming out shortly. Recently getting the update on one of the other sims, but not much difference between the two of them. Lighting changes maybe a bit, some stuff. Steve will maybe know more. He is the BMW beaver teeth expert, we will say, even though he just gave me a very strong look there. He secretly kind of dislikes the car. He likes the old McLaren, what's it, 6, no, the
MP4-12C!
That one. No, I still like the 720S, my old faithful car.
That car looks like it's been dropped on its head. I'd rather take the 650 GT4. But back to the action right now. You've got two cars that are brilliant in a straight line. The straight 6 turbocharged of the BMW versus the naturally aspirated V8 Mercedes that has some serious rotation on the rear. So it's able to corner very, very well. And we've still got a very close eye on Macheka, who has got a car that can handle its tires. We've seen this all season, and he's able to carry it through. How it's going to work out is going to be still a tough fight with Dion Kopp hanging on the back. There's a quick flash of lights of our leader, who will be catching these two cars heading into the double left-hander at the bottom end of the circuit. It's always a tough time out there. You're gonna have to see the drivers really put the hammer down. Oh, Crystals needs to take evasive maneuvers. Begor Krobler try to make a pass on Macheka. That threw Crystals into the dirt and is also compromised. Begor Krobler, Macheka has got a chance to now gap it well away, and Dion Kopp has got a bit of blood in the water smelled, and he's going to be on the chase. Chris Heineke drops the wheel on the dirt, and here comes Conrad Martin chasing him down. The McLaren puts the hammer down, looking for the pass, looking for the inside into the double left-hander. However, not able to get that straight line pace over the 992 and will be waiting. So, sorry, this is the 991. It's not the 992. That's coming out later. I have to correct myself. This is the 991.2. That's right.
Too many 99 whatever. I just know the Porsche 911. That's the only one that Porsche.
They haven't built a 911 in years. You can't do that.
Well, I do recall the RSR being an absolute beauty when it goes down the straight, especially its wine.
And it was 2005 when they went and built that. And the first RSR was back in the 1970s. As I said, years. Get your facts straight, kid. As Guy Duplessis and Grant Leclerc fighting out in a Ferrari and an Aston.
Yeah, the Ferrari looks like a squished bug, and just that the rear end wasn't enough funds to complete a proper, beautiful-looking Italian-manufactured rear, and just goes like, let's just back it straight into a wall, or someone dropped the model onto a floor with the rear first. It was like, magnifico, wait, the bellissimo, that's the right one, meaning beautiful, and go like, that's gonna be how it looks. It looks like a squished bug on the rear, and it sounds like it just wants to die of boredom when that engine just goes. And the long range, it goes, yeah, the whole time. I can't do it. But it still proves to be quite a strong endurance racing car, as we see the likes of Chris Heineke losing it at the exit of the second chicane. And Conrad Mott saying, thank you very much. My trusty McLaren is going to sneak on by. And the Porsche now has to fight all the way back in order to work up what needs to be done.
It is still great stuff being had. But let's go and talk about it. 33 minutes left in this race. Crystals leads out the pack with Johan Kleinans in second place. Kruger, unfortunately, a little too far back. 10 seconds off the back of Kleinans, trying to put the hammer down. Jean Verveers in fourth, and Jaco Kutzer remains right on the back. He is a lap down on the likes of Verveers, but is still pushing as hard as he can to keep going. Johan Blicknote leads out our GT3s with Kyle Oosthuizen in second place. Andre Materka lies in third. Pego Grubler in fourth place with Dion Karp chasing him down in fifth. Esteban Pistorius in sixth, followed by Dan Brown, Michael Van Rooyen, JD Sederman, along with Conrad Martin and Chris Heineke. Whoa! Conrad Martin well into the wall there. What on earth happened to the McLaren driver? That was a big one. Coming out through the left-hander, and it just looked like the car speared against the wall. He's able to get it going, but, oh man, you can see the damage. The wheel, front left wheel is completely gone out of the car, and he's going to be dragging that car back to the pits. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be a retirement coming out of him. Gideon Bernardi, along with JD Colton, they're running in 16th, 17th. Joe van der Vente down in 18th. 19th is Vessel Woda in the pits with Mike McGear, Vietia Buerta, and Jeff LaRue, unfortunately, out due to damage. Vessel Woda leaving pit lane now. This is something we got to talk about. Pit stops and strategies. Namely, the GT3s are going to be running to what their tank has and what their tyres are going to be feeling like. So for Dan Brown and Michael Van Rooyen, catching up to Esteban Pistorius is actually good to do a little bit of liftoff and coasting to try and help them through. However, for our hypercars, they have to keep an eye on energy, which Chris Stolz is sitting on 35, Kleinans on 32, Kruger on 34, Verveers on 36, and Kutzer, who did an earlier pit stop, still lies on 80. So, I mean, that is going to be a big one to keep an eye out for, because Kutzer is a lap down, but take a look for likes of Kruger matching stalls at the moment. Kleinans, unfortunately, down on both of those drivers.
Kind of interesting to see what the Delta Negros team is going to do. Previously, again, were able to just preserve that energy when they came across the line at Spa-Francorchamps, not needing to box again and preemptively taking the podium, top two podium steps there from just being able to manage the energy better. But Kleinland's having to push a lot earlier this race compared to previously, needed to go and really use a lot more of the energy. But we just got note from Francois Buerta, teammate of Conrad Martin, unfortunately, his wheel disconnected on the exit of Tamburello corner and threw him into the wall, destroying the front wheel of that McLaren, meaning that I believe he's going to be he's going to have to be a retirement unless the team is able to pull a miracle and rebuild that entire front suspension and just says goodbye. But that is, again, mechanical failures, which is what happens here in the sim world. Sometimes your gear does not really behave and just says, okay, I've had enough for now. I'm going to take an off night and I'm tired of this track. You guys can go and just have a lovely evening further. But we hold thumbs and hope that Conrad Martin is able to get the car back out there and at least finish the race. No matter where you are, finishing is always better to see the checkered flag. It's something that Steven has believed in since he started, and since he started showing me the way to always go and see the checkered flag no matter what.
Well, always got, if you've seen the green, you got to see the checkered. You got to do everything you can to make it happen. Andre Mateka, however, making his car as wide as possible, and you can see Begor Grobler leans on that right-hand rear of the BMW as they chase each other up the hill. It is going to be Andre first into the corner ahead of Begor Grobler. And yeah, unfortunately for Conrad Martin, the Treehouse Works sim racing team unfortunately gonna be working rather frantic on the car, and Conrad Martin will be query whether he can get that car out on the track yet again. Vesseloda completes his pit stop as we do keep an eye on the sharp end. Now, we got to talk about our top 5 are yet to come into the pits. They are yet to go into the pits as we will take a look. I mean, our hypercars, only Kutz has been into the pits. If we take a look at our GT3s, well, it tells a different story here, because we can take a look at the likes of Voda has been in the pits twice now, along with McGear with 1 pit stop. The rest of the field, Van der Fences just pulled into the pits. Martin, we know, has had damage on his car. He's unfortunately going to be waiting a long time, and if they can get that car going. But the GT3 field will be taking a look at the likes of Berta and choosing whether he's done the right thing. So Viertia gonna be really pushing that a little bit harder, and unbeknownst to some people is Viertia Berta has actually been part of Treehouse Works Racing and Eleanor at a point as well. Not sure if he still is, probably still is. But that being said, let's take a look back to the sharp end of the field as Andre and Begor Grobler still keep each other going. But this is a great time for Dion Kopp to get into the pits, get himself sorted, and get going if he needs to do the stop. 27 minutes to go in this race, expecting the final of the drivers to get into the likes of the 20-minute mark is when they're going to be going in. And yes, as Donovan points out, 2026 Porsche is a 911 GT3R. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I'll double check you on that one.
Steven will challenge you to it no matter what. 2026, are we ready in the future?
Because they've got a cup car. They've released a cup car, which is not a 911. That's why it's got me confused. It's a 992.2 cup. And that follows their GT3 counterpart.
Too many points and decimals within a car name. The only decimals and points I care about are in my sector times and at the end of my bank account. So it's something that it's already out apparently, Stephen. So why is it the 2026 model? Car manufacturers confuse me no matter what. And you can sit and draw diagrams. It will still be something that I will not understand, just like I didn't understand mathematics on high school, even though I still passed it somehow. Don't ask me how. But as you take a look here at Andre Mateshka and Begor Grobler, a bit of a daylight gap forming between the two of them as they are now circulating, being there. But you did mention Dion Kopp might have used that as an opportunity. However, he has fallen a bit more back compared to where he was on previous laps, not really able to get that Ferrari tuned in. It's a dominant car, but just not playing nice tonight in the format we have here. And we mentioned, Stephen, earlier, the early stops being made by the likes of Kutza and some of our other GT3 cars. It might be something. Do I get the fuel there in the beginning, run it to the end? But the issue is, your tires will be a lot more used up whenever you do a long stint from start to the end. So it's something that the drivers need to be cautious of, and also going to be interesting to see how the drivers. But what Thomas got to do. But here we have Esteban Pretorius in the Raging Bull Lamborghini fighting it out against the Mercedes AMG GT3 Evo of Dane Brown and really trying to find a gap there. But close behind him, we have the Aston Martin of, I believe, Van Rooyen there.
That is a
fighting
lapped
out.
car. Michael Van Rooyen
Lapped.
is a little further back behind this Aston Martin. So the two Aston Martins going, but it is side by side for Brown and Pretorius as they both come marching through. And it is our 19th place of Vietia Burtu, who's just keeping an eye on this action and seen Pretorius get past Dan Brown and continuing on the charge. So it's still a very close fight between them. Mechanica and Bego Krobler keeping close to one another, trying to really deal in a bit of pressure here to see if it's going to work out in their favor. Our hypercars, unfortunately, rather open at the moment, with Stills, Kleinans, Kruger for Fears going and rounding out the running pack on the lead lap. Yoko Kutsa still there in 5th place, and I do want to point out, Yoko Kutsa set the fastest lap time of the race, a 1:31.248. So despite being a lap down, has really shown he does have the pace. If it wasn't for the spin at the start, he would have been in there for title contention. Chaka going and losing the rear a little bit. You can see the TC kicked in just on the BMW. It straightened itself out just to come off that power and try and get it all under control, where Bego Krobler is running a bit more fast and loose on his setup and hoping that that's going to be the benefit to move him up through the order. But traffic now coming into play, not only for our hypercars, but our GT3s that are marching their way through. Arno Kraus losing a lot of pace, and here comes Ferry Duplessis. An early pit stop on his part may be a good run, as he does get past Arno Kraus. There was a little bit of a touch from the Lexus, a little bit of a love kiss there, and gone, as Duplessis looks up a field to see the bend BMW of Guillaume Maton, who looks to try and put the hammer down as fast as possible. Likes of Gerald van der Vente, he has done his pit stop, and we're seeing more and more of those pit stops coming in. But Cam, pit stops going to be coming in for our hypercars. Crystals with 21%, Kleinons on 18, Kruger on 18, Fears on 24, Kutza going to be running till the end of the race. But it is a question. Kleinons and Kruger are now very, very, very close on their usage together, and this can be a benefit. As we do know, Kruger tends to throw it out in terms of, okay, let's put the hammer down, let's really just race till the end and see what happens, where the others play a little bit more of a safer game.
You know, Kruger is, well, he has told us earlier this season, is he will throw whatever needs to be done at the car and then see, and just manage the issues or whatever, well, manage as they come up and need to be done. But
Conrad Martin back out on track. The Treehouse Works Racing not giving up and will continue on circulating despite the severe damage to the car. They got it sorted out and is running. That I love to see. Well done, Conrad. Well done.
Well done to Conrad Martin, his team, as well as shout out to the McLaren being able to be replaced so quickly, as Steven is giving me a bit of an eye roll here and it's going to give me a smack over the head soon. But no, so well done on Conrad and for keeping it out and sticking it out there. But we did mention, going back to the point, Brandon Kruger just goes flat out with the car, and whatever happens, he will manage and take it on as it comes across the dash of his car or whatever the team says to him. Where Delta Negative team will maybe then go and be a bit smarter regarding the strategy, if you can say it like that, being more precarious with how much fuel they use or set their target lap or the target fuel usage or energy usage. That is the capabilities of these hypercars, being able to say, well, this is what you need. And these drivers and their teams have ran multiple simulations to know what is the minimum amount of fuel needed if you want to cut out an entire stop. I don't think we will be lucky with the likes of Kruger and Kleinans. Stalls might be lucky with about 21 minutes left to go on this one. You never know. My co-commentator shaking his head saying, I don't think so, Cam. I think he will have to stop. We've said the same ones before, Stephen, and yet they are still somehow to shock us with how they are able to do that. is quite shocking. But we're going to see how this unfolds. As we both know, pit entry, not too bad. Pit exit is where the issue is, as it exits right onto the race line, which can cause massive, massive issues.
Now, take a look at this. What was 10 seconds between Kleinans and Kruger is now 3.2 seconds, as this Ferrari is going like mad. A little bit of damage to the nose, but it's still fighting out there with 20 minutes remaining on the same usage as Kleinans up ahead. This is a very, very close race between the two, and the question comes down of who's going to put the barrel down, who's going to pull the trigger first here. Is it going to be Kruger, or is it going to be Kleinans that gets the step forward? They've got the likes of Kleinans 5 seconds closer to Stalls. Now that was also a lot bigger. Tells me that Stalls and Kleinans have started tapping off. They're trying to bide a little bit more time in their stint versus the likes of Kruger, who's just flat out start to finish. For Fears, down in 4th place. Don't count him out. Takes one mistake and Fears will capture that 3rd place. As Macheka and Bego Krobler fight it out once again. A big look around the outside. However, Bego Krobler just not having enough in the tank to really get the pass on Macheka. The question still comes down for Bluchnote, Oosthuizen, Macheka, Krobler, Dion Kopp, Dan Brown, Jody Sederman, Chris Heineke, is when are they going to do their pit stop? Because we've seen a number of cars dive into the pits, but we are yet to see a good amount of our first 212 that are yet to do their final pit stops. Woda has done 2, McGear's done 2. We know the damage on both those cars, as we do see likes of Jan Verveers gets past and will continue on his drive in the Toyota. So Jean Verveers really trying to put the hammer down to gain a little bit of time here. He's feeling the pressure from Jaco Kutzer, who will be looking to hunt him down. However, we got 2 non-finishers in this race. JD Kildenace in the Mercedes, unfortunately out of the race, and Hilton Nixon with damage on his car is out of the race. He was a late starter and unfortunately an even later finisher at this point.
I was about to mention that, seeing that the likes of JD Kildenace losing and unfortunately getting hit, well, being classified as a DNF with a red marker of doom scratching his entry in our list there. But the other thing that we noticed, that I noticed, Stephen, is these 2 cars on screen, Andre Matejka and Bego Krobler, fighting out for that final podium spot. They have been the closest competing cars for the majority of this race, and we keep on referencing back to Dion Kopp about just lurking in the background. However, even though these 2 are fighting, they are still able to keep on pulling a gap to the likes of the Ferrari. Not really slowing down, not really bleeding time to one another, even though they are fighting it out, and Bego Krobler is not able to really... Well, not Bego Krobler, Dion Kopp's not really able to close that gap on these 2 in front. These 2 are fighting very hard, making moves, keeping Bego Krobler, keeping Matejka's mirror busy, needing to continue to look where the car is being placed off Krobler, but Dion Kopp not able to match the pace of these 2 drivers currently on our screen.
That is another little fight that's been building, is Maton and Duplessis, as we do see Duplessis dive into the pit, so he is going to try and think of what he can do to really get the undercut here. He's going to drop a little bit down in the order and see what they can do. Checker and Bego Krobler yet to get into the pits. Bluchnote and Oosthuizen as well. We're into the 16 minutes and 25 seconds to go left in this race. Cam, this is a very crucial time for the drivers to choose whether they're going to go in for the pit stop or are they going to stay out. Another factor comes in of the tires. Are they going to replace the set of tires? The further they go, the longer it's going to take to put on a new set of tires, and you lose that chance to actually swap out seats. You're going to have to go on a single run on the way through. It's always a tough time. Look at our drivers. Our GT3s out on mediums. All our hypercars on mediums as well. No special strats or soft and mediums on here. Everyone taking the harder compound tire to ensure that they can go that little bit longer. But they're on chasing. Matejka has got a problem with a McLaren up front. This is a back marker, the number 75, trying to just stick out of the way and not lose too much time and not to interfere too much in the battle. However, does put a wheel wrong and will lose out that little bit of pace.
I mean, we mentioned it, Steven. You mentioned the tires, and that's another factor. These drivers have been going flat out for a while, and I don't think they really thought about preserving those tires. It does add extra time to your pit stop if you're able to preserve them long enough, and these tires should be able to last an hour's length. They shouldn't be worn down that much, depending on how much energy you put through those rear tires specifically. As you put down the throttle, the wheels will spin, especially if your traction control is quite low. So it's heat that's getting placed through those tires, meaning that you drain life out of them, and needing to replace them will add extra time. So this is something that I hope many of the drivers took into consideration, that they only have to go and do a splash and dash, even though I do believe that these tires, well, these cars have enough tank capacity to actually complete an entire hour race without needing to stop, unless there might have been some restrictions placed, be put in place, but I do not believe that. So it's all about mind games at this point in time. Will the driver in front of me take the tires? Will the driver behind me be taking tires? I see Belgium just putting out the slipstream of Andre Matejka there. It's all about what is the strategy of the car that you are currently fighting it out with for position on this track. As I say that, nose to tail, third and fourth into the pits. Let's see. Tires, no tires, will they be going up on the jacks? Will they only be doing a splash and dash? Let's keep a close eye on this one.
Well, BMW up on the jacks and getting sorted out. Dion Karp reacting to Bego Krobler's react to the likes of Andre Matejka's react. I mean, that was... Matejka chose when he was going to get into the pits. Everyone else, as we do see Dan Brown pull into the pits, everyone else dropped in behind him instantly, like, okay, we got to try and work out and stop this undercut. Dion Karp still waiting to go out. Bego Krobler gets on by, but this should close up the three and keep them going. Jody Cinnamon, however, is still out there, and we haven't spoken about him. He's been sitting around out of the top 5 for a little bit, but now is up into 3rd place. Jody properly putting the hammer down, and last season was in a hypercar. This time round in the GT3s, he's really putting on a phenomenal show of just grit. He's able to stick it out there and go that extra mile.
Yeah, some great performance here from Jody Sedman. You did mention went from the Toyota hypercar of last year, getting dropped, well, we could say dropped from the Toyota program and moving over to the GT3 cars in Aston Martin. Maybe next year or next season we'll see him in the Valkyrie. Oh, beautiful car that also, as he now goes in the Aston Martin Vantage GT3 Evo, the long-awaited car that many of us have been eyeing for ages. But we see now that Brandon Kruger has gotten into the pits, while Kleinans and Stalls are still circulating. Now, I wonder if our production team might be able to bring up the virtual energy of Kleinans. Pit stops there. Everybody pitted except the 2 Delta negative cars. We can confirm that as 8%.
0.8% for Kleinans.
Oh.
I mean, that is cutting it fine of note to get that pit stop done and dusted.
But that must have meant, Steven, Brandon Kruger was in the pits before them.
Yes, Brandon Kruger was in the pits before them. And
was that stop... Yeah, but that stop must have been so long enough that these two guys were able to circulate, and as he was exiting, they were entering the pits. Did damage occur to the likes of Kruger? That's the next question. As I just see a quick blip there, Blichnote has gotten into the pits.
He had a bit of work done to his nose on the car.
Okay. So that will...
You can see there's a little bit of scuffs on the nose as he comes on by. So they haven't been able to fix everything, but they do know of a little bit of a problem. But Kruger has got a lot of climb to go as he starts trying to navigate the field. Do want to also point out Blichnote did pull into the pits, so he's back out on circuit. Jody up into 2nd place with Kyle Oosthuizen yet to get that stop done. Leads out the pack with 10 minutes and 50 seconds to go. I mean, this is always a very tough point. We do, however, get another DNF on the board, and it's our Toyota of Jean Verveers out of the race and will be watching from pit lane. That is an absolute gut wrench for Jean Fiers, who actually was on a stellar run and did hold a seriously quick lap time as well. Jaco Kutzer still holds the fastest lap time of our hypercars as he holds a 131.2. He's right up against the back of Johan Kleinans, trying to make that pass happen. And this is not for position, but if he can hang on the back of Kleinans as long as possible, he can have a chance to catch up to Brandon Kruger. And that's going to be the big game plan here. Can Kutzer catch up to Kruger and make it work? Well, he does look to the outside, misses his brake marker, nearly into the back of Kleinans, and that was nearly our Mercedes. That is Bego Hrobler getting a face full of Ferrari as well, diving into him. So he minds out of the way, lets the two Ferraris go. Jody pulls into the pits. Bego brings himself back into fourth place, trying to chase down Macheka, who is holding third. Blicknote in second, Carl Oosthuizen in first. As we see both of our Ferraris making their way through. Kutzer keeps the pressure on Kleinans. Now, the question does come into play here. Is Kutzer just aiming to fill up those mirrors of Kleinans and see if he can force a mistake out of him to go and lose that little bit of time? If we look at how much energy is remaining, there's a lot to play with on Kutzer. Kleinans has got 20, so he's got to be rather cautious. Same as Kruger and same as Stoll. So Kutzer has got everything to put the hammer down and use the battery as hard as he wants. Does go for the inside. Very late move to try and get that done on Macheka. And it does cause the BMW driver to back out and lose a bit of time. That's going to bring him a bit closer to the Bego Hrobler.
Question is, was that Mateka or was that Blicknote, as Blicknote pretty much gave up the lead for Oosthuizen? There we go, Blicknote. So, question now is, Steven, with 8 minutes 30 to go within this race, we still need to see the likes of Oosthuizen needing to box. We still haven't seen him do that. And previously, this is kind of breaking the mold that he has set for the previous 4 rounds that he has done, where he would always go a lap longer than his closest competitor, whether it's Blicknote or Pretorius. And now it's going to be, has he been able to sit behind Blicknote the entire race and save enough fuel to get him to the very, very end of this race? So it's going to be something close. Again, strategy is going to be a key factor to determine who's going to win this. And Carl will have a shorter stop or shorter stationary time compared to the likes of Blicknote. Blicknote stopped earlier, meaning he had to put in more fuel in order to get to the end. But Oosthuizen will only have to stop for a fraction, get that little splash into his tank, and then able to step on the throttle and immediately accelerate, of course, to the pit limiter speed, but then also accelerate out of the pits. We've seen this gone down before, and every single time Oosthuizen was able to capitalize on it and go there. But at Sebring, must remind everybody watching that Blicknote, yes, was able to fight his way back on Oosthuizen and really go and just snatch the victory from Oosthuizen, breaking his first place streak since round 1.
Well, that's it. It's going to be a tough time for the drivers to go and fight out. Crystals, Johan Kleinans, and Brandon Kruger hold the top 3 in the hypercars, with Jaco Kutzer hanging on the back of Kleinans, still waiting for his chance to get on by. A couple of drivers in the back there where we did catch is Arno Kraus getting a pass and trying to make his way through on the McLaren. He's trying to put the gap to the BMW over here of Mouton, who is fighting out for 12th and 13th position and will be still looking on for the drive. So getting around our back markers, making sure they can keep going that extra mile as they need to, as the likes of Gerard van der Venter in the number 75 McLaren keeps an eye. He will take a look and dive into pit lane, and that does look like Conrad Martin following into the pit, saying, okay, look, I need a bit of work on my car as well, just to see it through to the end after a big impact. Carl Oosthuizen comes out of pit lane. Carl Oosthuizen came out of pit lane now and got himself going. So Macheka will...
Whoa, Blicknote's in the pits. Blicknote's in the pits. He stopped earlier and he's now back into the pits.
Is it a pit stop or is it a drive-through? Diving into the pits? Yes, it is. He's needing a stop. Underestimated the fuel usage and now just battling to get it into the box as the car is rolling, and that is Blicknote not able to get into the pit box, and he's hunting. He's trying to hunt for the pit box, not working out in his favor there.
What happened there? That is quite peculiar as to what went wrong there now, Stephen, because we didn't see that. And Jody Sedemon was in 6, now I believe, yeah, he's in 6. What's there with now in 6? And this has allowed Dion Cup to move up, Bagel Horvath to move onto the podium, and Andrei Macheshka to take 2nd place. With Dane Brown coming in 5th, which I do believe will be his highest finishing position in this championship. I do stand on correction. That's something we'll check later on. I might be give a head shake here from our producer. We'll still see on that side. But I wonder what has happened with the likes of Johan Blichnout. Maybe a team, one of the team media representatives will be able to slip us a note saying this is what happened here on the side. We unfortunately made a miscalculation in the pit stop. We'll have to wait and see. But that has gone from bad to worse for the likes of Johan Blichnout.
Well, it was for Dan Brown. He's only gotten a 5th once in the championship. He has not been able to improve. He got an 8th, a 5th, a 10th, and non-finish to get him his 15 points. This will be 2nd top 5 in RaceFace.Pro. So he's really enjoying it as we keep an eye on Onacross and Kriamaton, finding out in the last 4 minutes as the rest of the field all looking pretty sorted out with Carl Oosthuizen and Andre Benteke, Bagel Krobler, Dion Cup, and Dan Brown rounding out top 5 of our GD3s. Crystals, Johan Kleinans, Brandon Kruger, and Jaco Kutzer round out the top 4 remaining hypercars. Unfortunately, we do have the DNF of Jean Verveers, JD Keldenace, and Hilton Nixon. Non-starters are Bernard Barkes and Nathan White, Dennis Gillett, and Jason Farmer. But we do have a couple of cars out there. LaRue unfortunately retired, but it's Conrad Martin after the severe damage to his car. He's still circulating. Gerald van der Vente is still out there. Vieter Buerta is still pushing. Mike Nogueira is out there. I mean, these are drivers that have run into problems, but still keep going. Chris Heineke and gets on by as Johan Blichnout up on the jacks again. So this is up into the pits, getting a service. So this is a service being done. He was not able to get his first service, and that caused him to lose a bit of time. The pit crew were not ready, and this is going to throw him even further down the field as Kerry Duplessis and Michael Van Rooyen get by. Blichnout down into 10th. If it rains, it pours, and it's all shown here at Imola as Blichnout loses out to Grant Leclerc as he stomps on by. That means he's going to have the McLaren on Van der Vente having a look on his inside, looking to try and get by. Not going to be an easy one there. Van der Vente laps down, will not be in contention. But for Blichnout, a top 3 was on the cards, unfortunately snatched away in the last 10 minutes.
I almost want to make a bit of a joke there, but similar to what happened, we experienced at another Italian circuit the past weekend. But unfortunately, it's not team orders there. But heartbreak for Blichnout, showing phenomenal pace, getting that pole position, a pole position start, and then going from bad to worse for his race. Taking it close out, leading the way with Oosthuizen sitting behind him and just keeping his mirrors busy, cruising in formation almost, and unfortunately all comes down to the pit boxes, where the team wasn't prepared to have him service. It might have been fuel rig was not doing what it needs to be, or the tires weren't brought from back of the garage or put and warmed up significantly. But 3 pit stops, 3 entries into the pits as Brandon Kruger, no, not Brandon Kruger, Jaco Kutzer pops into the pits now. What has gone on? Is that a drive-through? Because I don't see him stop. That seems to have been a drive-through.
In, out, unfortunately drive-through due to abuse of track limits. And that unfortunately drops him down even further. I mean, Kutzer started out on the front row and it just hasn't been his night ever since the spin. Grant Leclerc and Johan Blichnout will continue to race on. 1 minute to go, as Crystals will be smiling ear to ear on this. He's catching up to Dan Brown. There will be one more lap that he will have to do in the Peugeot 9X8 and will carry on the drive. Johan Kleinans out in 2nd place, continues on his pace. But take a look, Stalls and Kleinans narrowly getting in that window, 8 and 7%. They will have a single lap in these cars to get going. They won't have any more than that. Grant McClure fighting out with Bluchnote as the Aston Martin driver does not give up right now. Jan Bluchnote out there in the BMW, tries to look for a pass. Unfortunately, not in the right place to make it happen. Will follow through against the Aston Martin V8 AMR Evo and really keeps the power on as Grant Leclerc hoping to finish up in the top 10. He's going to really stand on the gas. Bluchnote threw it to the inside. Could not make the pass happen. He's going to try yet again into the right-hander. Is he going to make it work? However, not to be the case. Eats the curbs left, right, and center. Grant Leclerc keeps the power on. A quick flash of the lights from likes of Bluchnote saying, listen, I'm coming through whether you like it or not. It is a race for position as Bluchnote around the outside. Grant Leclerc hard on the brakes. He outbraked himself. Into the weeds he goes. Grant Leclerc drops out of the top 10. And Bluchnote moves himself back up into the top 10 after that one. Grant Leclerc will get himself going before the likes of Arno Kras. He does have one of our backmarkers of Van der Vente in the McLaren chasing him. But Kyle Oosthuizen coming to put yet another lap on the board. And will be smiling ear to ear on this one. But ladies and gentlemen, we go back because heading into the final sector through the double left-handers, it is the Peugeot 9X8. For the very first time, Peugeot will be on first place. It will be out there in the podium and taking the win here at Imola. Crystals of Delta Negative takes the win in the hypercars. Jan Kleinans will finish up in second place. Brandon Kruger fought it all the way through. He tried to keep it going. Hammers around the circuit. He will finish up in third place as all stands as Jaco Kutzer makes his way to line to take fourth place after a race to forget. But still got Jaco Kutzer still set the fastest lap time of the race with a 1:31.2. So it might have been a race to forget, but he still holds the fastest lap time here in the hypercars. Coming out to the final bit, it is going to be Kyle Oosthuizen ahead of Andre Michalka. And take a look, Bego Hrobler 1.2 seconds back. He is going to try, give it everything he's got. Hrobler is going and clawing away every little bit of time here. And they've got Dion Carp in fourth place, putting the hammer down, and Dan Brown in fifth place. But it is going to be all eyes to the front for Kyle Oosthuizen to take the victory as he slows it down, brings himself across our double left-hander in towards our main straight. Kyle Oosthuizen takes the victory here at Imola. For the very first time we visit here at Imola in the Le Mans Ultimate Championship, and the BMW driver has yet again snatched victory from the likes of the grid. Michalka will finish up in second place. A stellar run for the Chechen as he gets across the line. Bego Hrobler will finish up in third. Dion Cup finishes up in fourth place, and Dan Brown in fifth. What a race it has been as drivers circulate, getting themselves to the line. They're going to be rather happy on such a stellar race. Unfortunately, a couple of DNFs out of the race, couple of non-starters, but a lot of drivers are going to be more than happy with the race that they have had. So, with that being said, we're going to move away from the track and come back to the commentary box. We've got so much to unpack here, Cam, in terms of drivers really giving it that extra little bit. They try to make that victory and really try to make it work. I mean, honestly, some stellar racing out there from all our Le Mans Ultimate drivers.
I mean, you mentioned, Steven, we had some good close battles there in our GT3 field, up and down, and unfortunately, battles getting unraveled through either team mistakes or the computers not really computing the correct data or tasks not being ready to be put on. So unfortunately, battles getting unraveled there, but still some good fights up and down, some good strategy being implemented by many of our drivers there, and some great driving from the drivers that still, even though they were involved in incidents, still saw it to the very, very end. And I'm glad to always have those drivers cross the line whenever it is possible. But I think I see some of our drivers piling into the waiting room for the interviews, just piling in and all happy and excited as they as I get to speak again to our lovely voices, myself and you, Stephen. But I'm going to bring in first our third place finisher in our GT3s, and that is Bego Grobler. Fought a brilliant battle throughout the entire race with Andrzej Matejka. Came down to the pits. It looks like Andrzej just got a bit better, got a bit better pit stop than him. But I'm going to give it to Brandon Bego here for now. Bego, walk us through this race. You and Andrzej were quite close to one another the entire part of that race. Was that a bit of a challenge? How did you find it? Talk us through this.
How's it, guys? Yeah, just bad start cost me there. I think he got me at the start, and then just couldn't get past before the pit stops. And then I'm a bit scared to risk the VE as low as him and Kyle did. I think they crossed the line with 2% to go, so took an extra 4% or something, and that basically was the 2-second gap at the end of the race. So. Yeah, it was tough first stint. I felt like I was comfortably faster, but I just couldn't get past. So it is what it is. Happy for third.
You mentioned it there, but we know that for you, the Mercedes is relatively a new car compared to what you're normally driving on the other sides. Previously, you drove the BMW and I believe the Honda and the Porsche also on the other side. So the Merc is a bit of a new one can say for you. It's a bit different. Is that a bit of unknowns within the car that brought in that bit of doubts, or was it just rather not pushing the luck and just rather cross the line at the end?
With regards to the decision to take the extra VE, I think that was just not wanting to risk running out of VE at the end. But in terms of the car, yeah, it's not a car I would normally enjoy driving. I drove it because it was new at the time the season started, and it's a free car, so thought I'd give it a shot. But definitely won't be driving it again next season. I prefer something that's a bit more lively on the brakes, and it gives you a bit more rotation on power on exits. So we'll see this one out to the Merc, and then it'll get parked.
Well, you did mention the Merc is a bit of a different driving style compared to any of your other cars, but I'm going to give the mic over towards you. Any the floor is also yours if you want to give out anything. You're looking over to my co-commentator. I don't believe he's got anything from his side. Give me the thumbs up there. I'm going to give you the mic, Bego. Floor's yours. You can say what you want.
Yeah, just once again, thank you guys for the stream. I know Stephen was a bit last minute and still pulled everything together with almost having no internet. So huge thanks for that. We really appreciate the effort you guys put in. And then just to all the guys that are doing LMU, thank you so much. This league is really fun, and you saw tonight again how close the racing was in GT3, so it's really cool. And then to the ACC guys, I know some of them watch the LMU streams. If you haven't already, give LMU a go. It's awesome, and hope we can see you guys on the track next season as well. And then obviously to the guys that watch the stream, the supporters every week, huge shout out to them, and then to the sponsors, without whom none of this would be possible.
Well, some very wise words there also, and a bit of a challenge laying down for our other drivers in the other sims to also hop on, but not only drive the GT3s, but also fill out our hyperclass grid there. But Bega, I'm going to let you go celebrate with your team and enjoy this podium, back-to-back podiums that you shared now on both round 4 as well as round 5 here at Imola.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to bring in the other half of that little battle that we saw on screen, and that is the likes of Andrzej Matejka. Andrzej, this is the first time I believe we're able to speak to you. I hope we're saying your name right. It's Andrzej Matejka, correct?
It's Andrzej Matejka. That's better.
Dang it, Steven's got one up over me. I'm not going to live that one down. But welcome to the commentary box. Pleasure to speak to you for the first time, even if you've been on the podium before. You absolutely pulled a rabbit again out of the hat tonight here with a battle throughout the entire race with the likes of Grobler in the Mercedes, and just kept the pace up and running and was able to snatch that second place from the likes of Blugner, who we can confirm has experienced a game glitch where the car did not feel him until his third stop. So, which is a bit of heartbreaking. It was a good battle until the very end. But you and Bago were sticking together for quite a long time and didn't lose time to the car behind you, which was Dion Cup. So, just voice crack there. Just walk us through the race and how you experienced on your side.
So the start was like good for me. I started in fourth place, managed to get to the third place. Then I defended Bego for the third place, and at the end, the second one has the glitch. That's shame for him, but yeah, I managed to secure the second position and Bego the third. So that's good for us.
You mentioned it's good for your championship standing as well as the points that you're gonna get with this. Was something that but that makes you smile with glee, and really well done on your side. We also did a bit of a diving into your accomplishments, having done R Factor 2 on the Italian side, I believe, was mentioned by us, and you performed quite well there, and you brought it over to our RaceFace.Pro community here, and absolutely showed that for your first outing against a bunch of South Africans, you're still able to hold your own against some of our fast guys. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna, yeah, you can go on.
Yeah, I was searching some leagues and some English-speaking leagues, some with good community broadcasting, and I managed to find you on the SimGrid, and I joined on the last day. I think I must. I sent it the data from the how I call the app on the telemetry. I didn't even manage to drive the qualifying laps to the championship, so I must send the data to join.
Well, it just shows that the standards that we have here is able to catch the likes of Andre, well, even our international side, as you are one of our first international drivers to join us here in LMU. So it's it just speaks words of what we have there. But I'm going to let you go celebrate with your team as well as your loved ones. But I'm also, before we do that, I'm going to give you the mic and speak some words of wisdom if you want, or anything you want to say, and say there for our fans or anybody out there in the virtual grandstand listening.
So I must thanks to the fans, to the sponsors, to the commentators, organizers, and all of the staff. And I hope I will be there more often.
Well, you're always more than welcome to join us. Once part of the community, you always have a spot here at RaceFace.Pro. So I'm going to let you go now to go celebrate with the team and your loved ones. Congratulations on a well-fought battle and an extraordinary P2 in this race.
Thank you so much.
And now we're going to bring in the likes of Carl Oosthuizen, who has done the unbelievable again and snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, going back to back again and getting a first place against the likes of Blugner, who we have previously confirmed unfortunately experienced a game glitch and not able, and only fueled the third time he was able to enter the box. But Carl, welcome to the commentary box once again. You know where everything is at this point in time, and you know the rules of the commentary box, meaning leave my coffee alone. But walk us through tonight's race. You and Blugner were stuck together for a majority of this race, and then came the pits.
Yeah, at the start, I started in second gear to begin with, so the jump was null and gone. Hanging around the outside on cold tires was not an option, so I just tucked in and just started fuel saving from lap 1. I knew that I could at least go probably 1 lap longer than everyone else after a couple laps, but I didn't know I could go 2 laps longer. And yeah, that was basically the plan, was suspend less time stationary. it's kind of a long pit lane at Imola, but yeah, that was the plan, and it seemed to work out.
Well, you did mention the long pit lane was also quite bumpy with a lot of the pavement and concrete changing in it there. But it seems like this is a battle between yourself and Blighnout. It's something that's gone throughout the entire championship so far. You setting the pace and then Blighnout fighting back, and unfortunately tech issues coming in. But I believe at this point in time, you're kind of snatching that championship trophy, and Nolan Gage is saying, like, who's that little goblin in the Lord of the Rings, I believe, saying it's mine. So it's a bit of a back and forth between yourself and Blighnout, looking like Blighnout might pull a bit of an upper hand, and then you come fighting back saying, no, this is my championship, I'm not going to let you have it easy.
Well, Johan seems to have the outright pace over me. I know he was also fuel saving in like the first stint here. But my old R-racing habits die hard and lifting and coasting. But yeah, for the championship, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I just try my best and just see what happens. I know Johan will come back fighting next week. We're in the same car, so it's not like he'll have better this or better that. We're on different setup shops, but I mean, he's always pushing me to my limit, especially when it comes to qualifying. He gave me 3.5 tenths in qualifying, so you know it's a healthy strapping from him. But yeah, it's fun.
Well, a healthy battle between you two. Actually said it there, and I actually mentioned that iRacing got a bit of a big smile from my colleague here. But now I'm gonna give you the floor. You know the rules. You've been here so many times. Mike's yours. You can say what you want, and yeah, give a shout out to whoever you want to.
Yeah, just shout out to basically RaceFace. So far, it's been a great season. I've had great racing every single week. If it's not Johan, it's Estion. If it's not Estion, there's always somebody, Michael van Roy, and there's somebody to fight always. There's, I guess the guys have their favorite tracks. I just try and go along and try for the best. So shout out to everyone for the championship so far, and yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to the last 3 rounds.
Well, the last 3 rounds are definitely going to be full of entertainment for our GT3 class, but I'm going to let you go celebrate yet again with your team to really go and enjoy the champagne here in the beautiful country that is Italy. Just do not put pineapple on your pizza because they do not like that at all.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
But thanks, Carl Oosthuizen, for joining us here. But now we're going to jump over to our hyperclass cars, and don't see the likes of Baron Kruger in the queue there, probably still getting scolded by the Italian manufacturer for crinkling the nose of his Ferrari. But the other Ferrari on the podium is the likes of Jan Kleinans from Delta Negative. Another regular face that we see here in our commentary box, whether it's second, third, or even first. He is always there at the top, putting pressure to his teammate or fighting it out with the likes of Baron Kruger or Bernard Barkhuizen. Jan Kleinans, welcome. You had a bit of a tough race start, I must say.
Hi, good evening, guys. It was like the race start for me was, it was a bit scary, going almost 3 wide into turn 1. But we made it work. I came out ahead of it. So ultimately, I was happy with it. I think the tough part of the race for me was sort of the first 40% of the race, where Kruger was on at the back of me. The field wasn't spread out as much, so with the lapping of the GT3s, it was difficult. So yeah.
Well, it mentioned the difficulty of lapping the GT3s. We mentioned it also. Imola is a very small circuit, very narrow circuit, very twisty and windy. It's quite difficult to really be able to make a move there. And we did saw some contact between Kruger and one of the GT3s as you were navigating through, him being just a bit too close within your ring, not seeing the GT3. How can we say this? You kind of made myself and Steven scratch our heads in terms of the strategy that you're employing, because at one point yourself and Kruger were on the same percentage.
And he put it a bit earlier. I'm not quite sure why. I was definitely running lower wing than him, so my fuel usage per lap was a bit less. I was able to actually lift a bit in the sail as well, coast a bit just to play it safe. I think it was probably super frustrating for him because even in my slip, he definitely had too much downforce. Even in my slip, he couldn't catch up. I was actually, it looked like I had DRS in comparison. So it must have been super frustrating for him. But, I'll take it. It was a gamble for me to start on a bit lower wing, and, it definitely paid off.
Well, you talk about the lower wing and set up differences between the two of you, the probabilities of the downforce, but you cut it fine close. I don't know what it is with a Delta Negative team or whoever is running that Ferrari strategy, well, the Ferrari side of that team, but you entered the pits with 0.8% left on virtual energy. Talk about cutting it fine, close, one can say.
It's always about margins, and the more competitive things get, the more attentive you need to be to these small things, and just being careful. And it's so competitive. At the end of the day, I know it doesn't always look like it, but the racing is close. So you need to find time where you can, and you need to optimize where you can. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Well, you pretty much summed up racing about optimization where you can and also working the best out of it there. But I'm going to give the floor over to you now to give, the mic's yours. You know the drill. You have the floor.
I think as always, thanks to you guys for commentating. All the drivers. It was a good. I believe it was a clean race. I didn't see any accidents. Good job to the team. Chris, he was super quick as always. But yeah, thanks to everyone who made overtaking the GT3s easy. But yeah, good race. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Awesome. Some kind words being spoken there by Jan Kleiners there, but I'm going to let him go celebrate with his part of the Delta Negative team while I bring in his teammate and give him a bit of a discussion and examination under the microscope. Now, Crystals, welcome again. This time as a 5 times winner in this championship, this season. You're running away with us at this point in that little Peugeot of yours with the upgraded wing. It seems like you really came to figured out how to maximize your starts.
Thanks, Karen. Happy with the start. I think it helped a bit to have a shorter run and being on the inside. And then, immediately under pressure from Jan. So, it was a good start, but definitely under pressure, though.
Well, you mentioned under pressure from the likes of Jan, but it's quite interesting is that him and Kruger, him and Kutzer got into a bit of a fight there, and then you were still pulling away, and then later on, not even much of a big gap, really. You were still able to comfortably just drive. Gave a bit of a scare there at one point going into the downhill section before the final 2 left-handers when you decide to go grass section in the Italian countryside and gave everybody a bit of a scare, like, what happened there?
That was not one of my finest moments. It was just a misjudgment. It kings to the right there, and the visibility is so bad in these cars, and I was catching up to the GT3s really quickly, and I didn't want to lift or wait. I just wanted to go. I ideally wanted to go to the left, but then it felt like they were still a while away from turning in. So I thought, okay, I can go to the right hand side then because they're not turning in yet. And then by the time I was next to them, they had to turn in for the corner, and just took to the grass. And luckily, Bego was on the receiving end of that, and I say luckily Bego because very experienced driver, obviously knows what he's doing, and he definitely saved me there by going a bit wide and making sure we don't have a collision there. So props to him.
Awesome, good. Well, some nice words being shared there between the Hyper class and the GT3 class, but yeah, it gave all of us here in the commentary box as well as the grandstand a bit of a heart-in-mouth moment there. But I am going to let you go, though. I'm going to give you the mic first so you can say whatever you want. Of course, just keep it friendly. But the floor's yours, mic's yours. Say whatever is on your heart.
Thanks, Cameron. Yeah, no, I'm really happy to be here again, and thanks to all the sponsors and you guys to make the stream possible. Yeah, and thanks to my teammates for always pushing me. Definitely made me sweat today. So yeah, I knew if he came closer, it would be pretty difficult for me to keep him behind because of the straight line speed. So well done to him and well done to Yaku. Unfortunate race for him, but it looks like he had really strong pace. So well done to him as well. And yeah. Maybe just one shout out as well to my parents who always watch and my girlfriend who's always watching. So thanks, guys.
Some fantastic shout outs going out there, as well as some kind words to everybody, all the competitors out there. But Chris, I'm going to let you go celebrate with your side of the garage as well as your teammate. But Crystals from Delta Negative taking the victory for our hyperclass car here in our round 5 of season 2 of our LMU Championship.
And what a season it's been, Cam. I mean, we have seen dogfights in the GT3s and in the hypercars. I'm looking forward to seeing how it's go, because this time out, we're going to be heading out to Interlagos for round 6 happening next week. And Interlagos is always one of those circuits that can either hurt you or work in your favor. For the hypercars, it is a lot of low aero to get yourself going. However, for the GT3s, it's hard on the brakes to make those 1.1 to 1.2 ton cars slow down hard enough to make it through the corner. So I'm curious to see how the modifications are going to go in setup and in practice to make it all come together.
Interlagos, from Italian side to the Brazil side, we're going from Europe all the way to South America, and it's going to be interesting, Stephen. Me and you have spoken about it before. Interlagos, quite a tricky one. Long acceleration in hard on the brakes for that turn 1, and it's a twisty turn 1. So it's going to be a lot of straights and then a lot of twisty, windy sections, up and down elevation changes. It's going to be quite tricky for our drivers, specifically those hypercars. But I'm curious to see, as you, how the drivers are going to do that. But I do think we have to run through what is going on in the world of Raceface in the coming weeks that is coming on. Stephen, I believe you do have the schedule regarding that?
Well, we've got tomorrow night, we've got a set of Corsa Competizione, round 5. The drivers are going to be finding out. Both our Pro-Am and our Gold and Silver will be out and broadcast on the channel. So keep an eye out for that, as we're going to bring you all the live action of what's going on in the world of Assetto Corsa Competizione. And that is really looking forward to. But if you're into something a little bit different, well, Cam, I know that you've been cooking up in the kitchen there for our iRacing.
Well, you can call me the Gordon Ramsay on the iRacing side, as I brought in, as I cooked up quite a fantastic feast for our iRacing gents there. Starting from next week, we will be starting our grading service for our iRacing side for our GT3 series that has gone through some changes in the format that we're going to be running, hoping to bring more entertaining races to our viewers as well as to our drivers through the range of short 30-minute races to 30-minute races in the evenings, and maybe even some endurance racing there on the other side. But then also on our alternating series, as we would be calling it now, meaning that every second week, within the week after our GT3 series, we will be having our first ever RaceFace.Pro multi-class prototype challenge, meaning we will be running GTPs as well as our LMP2s, which will also be having some grading done recently. But that all starts and kicks off with the GT3s firing off on the 23rd of September, and on the 30th of September we will be firing off our multi-class prototype challenge. So if you want to join us on that side, head on over to the Discord and sign up there. The links and the season will be opening up soon on SimGrid, where our drivers will be able to sign up, and we will be having close fighting action for all of our class to make sure that all the drivers have some good entertainment, as well as all our fans out there in the virtual grandstand.
It's going to be one heck of a season to keep an eye out for, and ladies and gentlemen, it is getting closer and closer to the end for our ACC and our LMU. LMU has got 8 rounds in it, and we're heading out to round 6. That means there's going to be 2 more after next week, and if you're not there, well, you're going to lose out. A massive shout out to our sponsors, however, EG Evolved, going and bringing us the simulator rigs and having a great time, along with Simulator Cave, bringing in some awesome products. Go and take a look at both of our South African leading institutions for bringing some gear to South Africa. Massive shout out to SBR, Rhino Utility, Virtual Motorheads from coming and joining. Keep an eye on them as well, as SBR and Rhino Utility are bringing out trophies. We will show it out on our social media. And Virtual Motorheads, who gives you all the breakdown on gear that you want to have here in South Africa. Last one was a Monza and a simulator cave rig, which we actually got a win for that end of this year, 16,000 Rand. And all that you need to do to get yourself in that raffle is to finish our seasons, to be a part of the race, no matter in ACC, iRacing, or LMU. From myself, Stephen Koenig, and from our lovely co-host, Cameron DeBastos, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us out here in the virtual grandstands. We absolutely love to see you heading into tomorrow and next week. And we'll see you next time. And like always, you can say it with me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody.